Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual tribal ALTSA HCS AAA Fall Summit. We just got back from lunch and we are going to be starting our fourth session, which is on COVID ADRC grant. And we have staff from the American Indian Health Commission that will be presenting on this today. So I'm going to turn it over to Vicki Lowe. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. As Crystal said, we want to share with you information on the grant that the American Indian Health Commission has with ALTSA to do some engagement between the tribes and the AAAs. Next slide. Today, our presenters are myself. Can you go to the next slide? Myself and Jan Olmsted and Cindy Gamble. My name is Vicki Lowe. I'm the Executive Director for the American Indian Health Commission. I am Jamestown S'Klallam and Bella Coola First Nations from Canada, and I worked at the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe starting in 1996, have been the Executive Director for the American Indian Health Commission since 2015. And I have extensive knowledge in the Indian healthcare delivery system, as well as state and federal regulations over the Indian healthcare system. And with me, I also have Jan Ward Olmsted, who is Barbarino Shumash and a descendant of the California Mission Indians. She serves as our public health policy and project advisor. And in partner with the tribal leadership and tribal health programs community members, Jan helps create native approaches that draw on unique cultural resources, community vision, and the engagement of tribal elected officials. And we're also very lucky to have with us Cindy Gamble, who is Tlingit, and I can't say the name of her clan, but it's called the Man's Book Clan in English. And she's been a tribal community health consultant for quite a few years with us, and she's the lead on the WIC Nutrition and Maternal Infant Health project, and she also works on many of our other projects, including this one. Next slide. A little bit about the American Indian Health Commission. The commission was formed in 1994 by the tribal leaders in the state of Washington, and we work for the 29 federally recognized tribes and 3 urban Indian health programs here in Washington state. We're very a different model than other entities that work with tribes. We have a very tribal-driven agenda, and we provide a forum for the tribal leaders and their representatives and the urban leadership to work at the state level with state agencies, the governor's office, on issues that directly impact the tribal and urban health programs. Next slide. And so this project, is to assist the Washington State No Wrong Door Network to help build statewide capacity to serve American Indians, Alaska Natives, and the older adults and individuals with disabilities during the COVID-19 pandemic. And this includes increased needs that are anticipated during this period. We have 4 steps to the project that we're doing. Next slide. The first step will be engagement. And so for outreach and engagement, we will be using the Pulling Together for Wellness framework, which Jan will talk a little bit about soon. And that is a tribally driven framework that we use, because we know that when we work with a state, they come to us with a very state-driven way of doing things. And we want to make sure that when we're working with the tribes, that also that the tribally driven, that our values and our ways of doing things are honored. So we want to make sure, as part of that, that elders' voices are heard. So in this project, we will be engaging with elders in different communities and making sure that we're hearing from them. The second piece is really to identify the best existing data, and which is difficult, and we'll talk some more about that. And we want to think about qualitative data, which we're all used to using, but also quantitative data in which we will use storytelling to help make sure that those stories get across and that the data is better explained through those stories. We will be doing regional gathering sessions, so we're going to bring the tribes together in the different AAA regions and to meet with the AAAs, to learn more about each other. There's some places where they might already be working together, so further develop those relationships and making sure that our American Indians, Alaska Native community members are able to receive as many services as possible, and that the coordination between the tribal programs and the AAA programs is really in place to offer the best services for everybody. And then at the end, we'll be making a report and disseminating our findings and recommendations back to the state and to the tribes and the AAAs, and hopefully we'll be doing more work moving forward after that. So I want to pass it over to Jan, and she's going to talk some more about the Pulling Together for Wellness framework. Thank you.
Next slide, please. Thank you, Vicki. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Pulling Together for Wellness framework. The framework is a culturally grounded framework and evidence-informed, public health evidence-informed. The American Indian Health Commission facilitated and co-designed the framework along with a Tribal Leadership Advisory Council. We also received input from youth, elders, and from American Indians, Alaska Natives in many forums in gathering input from at the community level, at the state level, regional level, and we've also presented on national platforms as well. We are utilizing the framework to carry out this project. And in many different aspects of the project, a couple of things that I will be pointing out about the framework. We don't have the time to go into detail to all of the components here, but I'm going to highlight a few things. First, we're going to start at the bottom of this graphic, and it says generational clarity, and you could see this point upward. So generational clarity is the concept of looking at the experiences of our ancestors that have been really strength-based experiences, those things that they've carried on and we've carried forward to our survival today. As well as the impacts of historical trauma and genocide. Those are need to be looked at as really sort of a basis and the root of our health experience. So as we're doing quite a bit of work in the generational clarity training that we're doing. I'm not really going to go into any more depth about that today, but hopefully at a later time we'll have a chance to do that. But that helps us to come from a perspective of the cultural and historical context in this work. You can see then pointing upward is a medicine wheel. And it was determined by the Leadership Council that we would use the medicine wheel for this work. It did not originate from the Northwest Territories. It originated more from the, I believe from the Wyoming area. That's where the medicine wheel is actually located. But the teachings of the medicine wheel resonate with many American Indian, Alaska Native people, with many tribal peoples. And there's teachings from that medicine wheel that the Leadership Council believed was certainly relevant and was known to the tribes and the urban Indian communities in Washington state. So that was carried forward. So in the aspect of all of our health, when we think about it as being from a more holistic view, is connected to not only physical, but mental, spiritual, and emotional health. That's how we get to a point of whole health, is looking at the integration of all of those things. And of course, we know from the recent work through the Adverse Childhood Experiences study that that there's science behind that too, and recommendations that an integrated approach is really the best approach to achieving whole health. One of the other things that I want to point out about the medicine wheel is that there's also teachings about 4 phases of life. And so elders are one of those phases, and also 4 directions in our thinking and perspectives. So just, food for thought there. A couple of things that Vicki referred to in terms of engagement. If you go to the left side of the chart and it says components of the PTW framework, there's a couple of things that I'll highlight. Mobilizing it at the tribal community level, so it's both tribal and community. And the importance of leadership engagement in order to sustain projects and get the level of support needed to carry forward decisions, but also that community engagement that's so important to ensure that the strategies used or approaches used are really effective for those specific communities. And then the engagement of youth and elders. And in this case, certainly we're focusing very much on elders. Another area that I want to point out is the, and Vicki alluded to this as well in terms of data. And I would say the importance of the balance of data and stories. So telling our own stories, and the truth telling about history and the stories of the ancestors and the elders, and those survival stories of how we've managed to continue to this point in time. And we know that a lot of those stories, it's very important to share what is positive in those experiences. And I can think of a number of things that today are reflective of that: the revitalization of language, of cultural and traditional practices and ways of lives. And, so not just the ill effects of historical trauma, but those strength-based teachings and learnings and things that we've been able to carry forward to today. I think we can move on to the next slide. So in addition to that, I'd like to share just a few more details about data that we know. We know that data is a challenge for us because of many of the issues of how it's gathered, who is collecting it, and just overall the history of data collection. What we'll be sharing with you today is based upon information that has been provided by the Administration for Community Living by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and based upon a profile that was done in 2018. This information, unless I express otherwise, is based upon population of age 65 and over. So in general, we know that that non-Hispanic American Indian Alaska Native population in 2017 was 0.5%, and that was the American Indian Alaska Native population alone. And those who reported in combination with more than one race, it was certainly higher by, you can see the number here, 568,000. And then in 2017 again, there were 437 American Indian Alaska Natives that were over the age of 100. And again, that was the 0.5% of all of those who were over 100. What we know is that life expectancy of the American Indian Alaska Native population in Washington state was 8.6% lower than non-Hispanic, the non-Hispanic white population. I think that's just really an interesting factor when we think about even the definition of elder. We know that many tribes have defined their elders as being certainly younger than age 65. So just some food for thought there again. Let's see, I think we can go to the next slide. In Washington state, the elder population was 14% that were 65 and older. And again, this is American Indian Alaska Native alone. And this is based upon a population that is just overall, again, if we look at in combination with other races, so American Indian, Alaska Native, plus any additional race, that number would certainly be higher. But 14% is what the state shows, and that's in their profile from 2015. Can we go to the next slide? And here is the national poverty rate. They have the national poverty rate, again, this is a national number, was 17%. And then again, I'm just going to point out a state number that we know that on the state profile for 2015, American Indians, Alaska Natives were 24% were below poverty, and that's American Indian, Alaska Native alone, not solely reflective of 65 and over. That was just the overall population. Move on to the next slide, please. Another thing that we wanted to make certain that we pointed out was that nationally, the numbers of grandparents living with grandchildren is relatively high. In 2017, 47% were responsible for their own grandchildren. 53% were not, and the total number, let's see, estimates in 2000, there were 53,000 American Indian Alaska Native grandparents raising grandchildren, and more than half of those had been doing so for over 5 years. And so it's believed that this reveals a portrait of grandparents who are really committed to raising their grandchildren, despite the fact that they were living in poverty with ill health and perhaps limited resources and services. We know that in a recent report, and definitely that report, I'm thinking it was in 2020, actually this year, that there were 2.5 million US grandparents raising their grandchildren. Again, this is just broadly, not limited to American Indians, Alaska Natives. due to the opioid crisis and other social issues. So it is definitely an issue that we're seeing nationally. Next slide. Disability status, this is a state number in 2017, 40, this actually is, should be 41% of non-Hispanic American Indians and Alaska Natives alone had one or more disabilities. And here, it is one of the components of the Pulling Together for Wellness framework is the importance to really raise the attention to the positives. What is strength-based, and culture as being central to the overall health of our population is been pointed out by the Leadership Council and really everywhere that we've had this conversation. It is really critical to raise that to the attention, not just the negative aspects. And this is, these numbers are from a report from the Urban Indian Health Institute that was done in 2018. There were 181 community members that participated in this King County survey. There were 81.2% that indicated that they participated in cultural events regularly, and that 78.9% indicated that they were satisfied with their social activities. And, you know, the reason that I chose to have Billy in this picture is that, you know, Billy always talked about cultural sustainability. He talked about it from the perspective of our fisheries, but he made the clear connections to culture and human sustainability. This is really key and important. We're hearing a lot from the general work in dealing with trauma-informed issues around positive childhood experiences that really very much align with our thinking about raising the importance of strength-based strategies and strength-based understandings that our elders have been talking about for a very long time. So I'm going to pass this on in just a moment, but before I do that, I'd like to just read a quote from Billy. "Those who learn to listen to the world that sustains them can hear the message brought forth by the salmon. The message is the same as it's always been. Respect Mother Earth, Father Sky, and they will continue to sustain you, your children, forever. Pursue a vision of harmony rather than bow to greed and short-term gains and at the expense of long-term well-being. And your descendants will inherit a world filled with beauty and substance." Thank you. I'm going to pass it on to Cindy now. And next slide.
Thank you, Jan, for reading that quote. That was beautiful. And it really just goes to show how important elders are in our lives. Respect, our culture is really built around respect, respect for others, respect for ourselves, respect for all our relations. And respect for elders is one of our highest values. And we really look to our elders for guidance, for reassurance, for advice. We really depend on their wisdom and their experience. But how often do we really think that many of our elders are still healing themselves, are still healing from the experiences that they have had in their life exposed to discrimination and institutional racism and community racism? Well, Jan and I got that message pretty loud and clear from an elder 5 years ago. We were at a meeting in Lummi. I don't remember what the meeting was about. I know that after the meeting, there was some sort of event and there was all sorts of tables and booths. And I do remember that they had some really delicious dry fish, and we were eating some really wonderful smoked sockeye fish salmon jerky, when all of a sudden an elder just walks right up to us and says, "Who are you and what are you doing here?" And so we introduced ourselves, and we got into a conversation with this elder. And it just has to be filed under the magic of elders, because why did she come up to us, two strangers in her area? Why did she come up to us and engage us in conversation? But it was so important, and you can see that 5 years later, we are still quoting this elder because her message was so profound. Don't forget the elders. And again, just a reminder that elders are still healing. You know, they went through boarding school. They went through a lot of the racism that was so prevalent, so much more prevalent several generations ago. And she really understood that it was so important for elders to be healthy and strong in mind, body, and spirit because of their role in the community, their role as culture bearers, their role as wisdom keepers. It's so important for them to just feel really good, and because of their role in influencing their families and the community and thus future generations. So we really thank that elder, and she's a very wise woman. Next slide, please. And so we don't forget the elders. We always try to get the elders' perspective, their elder stories. And so when we were presenting for this, preparing for this presentation, we thought it would be a great idea to have some elders represented in our presentation. And so we thought about what we'd like them to share, and these are the 3 questions that we came up with that we wanted them to comment on. And we were able to find 2 elders. One was from Jamestown, and we thought that's great. We have the West Side represented, and another elder was from Colville, and we thought this is perfect. Now we have the East Side represented. But you know, the times we are living in are just very dramatic. It's just unbelievable what people are going through. And so neither elder will be joining us live today. So next slide. But we do really want to raise our hands to respected elder Soy Red Thunder from the Confederated Tribes of Colville for his willingness to be with us today. And although we are not going to be able to listen to the wisdom of Mr. Red Thunder, we did want to share some of the things that we learned earlier in a visit in June. Vicki, Jan, and I went, we didn't go there, but we had a visit with the manager of the Colville Tribe AAA. And so we just wanted to share a little bit about what we learned about a tribal AAA. And so, as was earlier mentioned, sometimes tribes have a different definition of what an elder is for their area. And indeed, in Colville, you are an elder at age 55. And they have about 2,500 elders. And of that number, about 1,300 are on or near the reservation, so in their service area. They have 4 senior meal sites or senior centers. And each of those sites has a staff of around 8 with cooks, case managers, service coordinators, handyman. And when we talked to the manager again in June, he said that normally they produce about 160 to 200 meals, but on that day they had produced 520 meals. And he is anticipating that this is because of the stay-at-home orders at the time, and that is going to be their new number that they are going to be dealing with, which is quite a jump. He mentioned that tribal AAAs are different in that they do a lot more direct services themselves in-house. And some of the services that they provided include going grocery shopping, doing chore services, chopping wood, cleaning windows, picking up medications, and even small home repairs, thus the handyman. Pretty cool. And they also help connect elders on and off the reservation with resources that they need. And although their services are for Colville tribal members, they do try to assist family members, non-native family members, with resources that they need so that they can be served also. They also assist with some legal issues. They help with guardianship, power of attorney, wills. They do education on important topics such as dealing with COVID-19, how to protect yourself from scams that are preying on elders at this time. And of course, they always have a lot of social activities. Each of their senior centers has a senior advisory group that meets monthly to plan events, I guess, in non-COVID times. And they also have an annual Elders Fair. So it just sounds like Colville is doing such an amazing job in supporting their elders. We left that meeting pretty inspired and impressed by what they are doing. And the manager, I have a little quote from him too, and it says, "The idea that we are all related is important in the work that is done. People do the work because they are committed to it." And so, again, we were very impressed by the work of the Colville AAA and how they want to support their elders. Okay, next slide. And now I would like to introduce you to respected Jamestown Sklallam elder, Mr. Mike Glow, and he is going to speak to us in his own words. So if we could play the video, and thank you for this opportunity to be with you.
The Feast of the Musqueam Son. I'm Michael Lowe. I'm an elder of the Jamestown Sklallam tribe.
Can you tell us how the tribe's elder program has impacted you?
But yeah, in many ways, it's one of the things that jump-started my life after reaching the age of elder age, of course, is 55, but a lot of us are still working until we're 65, 70 years old. But at 70, all of a sudden, you wonder, what are you going to do with your life? Is it over? Is it done? Well, because of our elder program here in the tribe, it's opened up a lot of new doors and kind of jump-started my life. It got me going after about with cancer and stuff, which I survived. I thought, I'm going to become one of those old couch potatoes that sits there and watch TV. But because of the elder program, I was able to start off with attending a beading class, which turned into doing arts and crafts and learning arts and crafts at an elder gift making thing. And from there, we have other programs that come in and allow us to take part in cultural things, such as learning how to go out and gather cedar, gather cattails, gather sweetgrass, all for use in things that we make, that are part of our culture. Brings us back to our culture, which we in turn can then share with our grandchildren and our children and make sure that these things aren't lost forever. Without the elder program, I don't know where I'd be today. I'd probably be one of those sitting on the couch, sitting at home saying, the tribe doesn't do nothing for me. But they're wrong. The tribe does a lot for you. And the elder program is a big example of that. My thing with the elder program also is that it not only takes care of you as far as learning new crafts, arts, and all that stuff that I enjoy doing, but it gives me a chance also to learn wellness. For years, I've abused my body in many ways, and here through the elders program, we learn how to take care of ourselves. We learn healthy ways to eat. We learn healthy things to do that help us, in everyday life. Sometimes getting out of bed is a problem, but with the stretching movements and stuff like that they teach you, that all helps. And there's so many people that are willing to help us with all that stuff. It's just not one of the things. It's not an end of a life, and you're not being pushed aside. Part of the elder program that I really like is the fact that we get to learn our language, we get to learn our dancing, our songs, and become an active part of our tribe. Not only do we become an active part of our tribe, but we're able to share our knowledge that we learned from our own grandparents who were our elders before us. And also remember that they're not going to be forgotten because we can pass all that knowledge on to them.
Do you see any gaps in services in the elder program at your tribe?
Yeah, I was just talking about that, thinking about that the other day, and a part of the problem is, you know, especially in this day and age right now where things have changed so much, we have one person who kind of takes care of trying to organize all these things for us, but that one person can't drive 5 or 6 people to something. There's too many people who sit at home and aren't able to do things because they're not aware. But if this person had a liaison person to be able to go out and help these others, tell them what's available, offer to give them a ride to these things so that they get out there, I think we'd see more of our elders being able to participate in the programs and also probably make new friends instead of thinking they're the only one in the situation they're in. That's my biggest thing about that. You know, the other thing is right now, I think it's really hard, but I miss our get-togethers, our chance to laugh and joke and have a good time. So, but we're coming around that.
So, can you talk about how services have been impacted by COVID?
Well, at first it was horrible. You know, all I could say is that everybody was freaked out. Many people were fearful and stuff like that. I'm very thankful to our elder program and the tribe for teaching us how to stay safe and being on the ball, getting ahead of this to where none of us have gotten sick. We're still all healthy and doing well. But it was a big learning thing to learn how to do all this stuff. If it wasn't for the tribe, we would have learned it. The thing that I think of the most is that I lost my train of thought.
It's okay. I can edit
Okay.
it.
Oh, you can edit?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, the biggest part that I see, oh gosh, where are we? Oh, is we've decided to get ahead of that, and because of our elders, we've decided that we're able to do this virtually. So now, instead of not being able to attend our language classes, we do it through Zoom, and we all meet together, and you see all these faces on screen, you know? Our cooking class, cooking thing we used to do once a month and meet and get together. We now do that on Zoom. We're learning new methods of cooking and healthy cooking, I might add, which is hard for me, but I love it. And here we see each other and visit. And we not only see each other, but we see each other's spouses at that one. That's a lot of fun. And people can sit there and get acquainted and talk and share their cooking abilities and stuff like that. We also, I guess, are going to be doing our committee meetings online too, so we can be able to attend them and not have to show up. A group of us have gotten together to keep the elder thing together, and our elder coordinator attends those with us and get together, and we meet, and we have one of our members has a big yard, and we have all this area that we wear masks, we social distance, but we bring yard art and do arts and crafts and things like that. It's one chance to get together to at least laugh, have a bite to eat, healthy I might add, and enjoy it, you know, and not lose track of each other. And also keeps us up on each other in case somebody needs something or not. You know, the other thing we do, we have a birthday group, we do drive-bys. And that is so much fun because we all get there again, we wear masks, we social distance, and we get to sing in our Klallam language and make somebody's day instead of them feeling left out and alone. So basically, you know, I think we're doing pretty good at coming around this COVID thing. I've finally gotten used to learn how to sit at home for a while.
Anything else you would want people to know about the importance of the elders programs at the tribe?
I just can't re-emphasize enough that without the elders program, we would have more of us sitting at home doing nothing, being pushed aside, because, you know, even though our younger generation is doing so well at what they're doing in our tribe, sometimes they're so busy doing with that our needs are kind of pushed aside because there are other more urgent things going, especially with COVID. There's a lot more planning and stuff they have to do. So yeah, I would hate to see it fall by the wayside, not have enough funding to be able to allow us to grow old and do it gracefully.
Thank you.
That was wonderful to be able to hear Mr. Lowe's words himself. And it sounds like the Jamestown S'Klallam Elder Program is doing a lot of wonderful things too. That's greatly appreciated. Okay, well, thank you very much. And now I'm going to hand it back to Vicki.
Thank you, Cindy. And that is my uncle, so I just want to, I know you can tell by the last name we might be related. And I have to admit to him that I forgot to edit out the part where my puppy came in and distracted him. So I'll let him know that everybody got to see that and he'll just laugh. But I was so happy to have him share his story because the Elders program here has made a huge impact on his life. Can we go to the next slide, please? And I can talk about the project timeline. So we started in April, March, trying to do, this has been, you know, we're used to meeting in person, so this has been a little bit of a learning curve. We do a lot of online meetings as staff and things, but really, you know, this is the kind of work that's important to do in person, so we're really trying to make that adjustment, but still be really sensitive to the idea that you don't have the same kind of meeting when you meet like this, even, you know. So we figured out where all the regions were and which tribes were in the regions and started to develop how we're going to bring those regions together. We, as Cindy mentioned, we met with the 2 tribal AAAs, which are Yakima and Colville, and learned a ton of information about the great work they're doing and what they're doing on top of the usual work they do in response to COVID. Jan has been working, as she shared with you, on some of the data, and now we're trying to start to put together the stories from the elders, which are really helpful to support the data and really understand what is going on in each community and what are the unique needs there and how are they being met and what are the other resources that could be brought in. And that has been this summer. And then our next step will be to have those regional meetings. So we'll bring together the tribes and the AAAs and other partners in each region just to really establish how things are going right now. Sometimes there's some historical things that have happened and we want to make sure that we help work through those and really get a good understanding of what are the tribes doing. What are the issues they're having? Are the elders having barriers to receiving services and care? And then what is the function of the AAA in that area, and what do they have that they could offer? And what are the ways that the tribes and the AAAs can work together better to really bring up that level of resources and services to the tribal members? And then in January we'll be putting together some recommendations and a final report and sending it out to everyone. And then planning for the next steps. And so hopefully that will work into, we're hoping to have this be an ongoing partnership with ALTSA. And that is all. If you go to the next slide, I think it's just us saying Hot Nutsen, thank you, and S'Klallam. And we appreciate your interest in the work we're doing. We're so very excited to be doing this work. I was so excited when Marietta called us and to ask us if we would be interested in working with them on this, because it is a gap in something that we wanted to work in. So thank you so much. And I think it's back to Crystal now, right, for questions?
Yes, great. Wow. Thank you so much, Vicki, Jan, and Cindy for that beautiful presentation. I learned so much and it just filled my heart so much to hear about what you're doing and working with these elders and Vicki hearing your uncle speak, and it was really great, and his vitality and excitement and sharing how important these programs are. It was really great to hear. So thank you very much. We have about 15 minutes for Q&A session, and I just want to remind everybody that there is a Q&A box to the right of your screen. Everybody is muted. The way you participate is to type in your question, and I will read it out loud, and the presenters will have an opportunity to respond. So I want to start off, one of the comments were, this is a very interesting session. Thanks to all involved putting this one together. Thank you, Jan. That was some powerful information. And Michael Lowe's experience is wonderful. And again, more thank yous to the presenters. I believe we'll be able to have the PowerPoint posted in the Teams section for this presentation. So we'll have that available for you at a later time. And just a reminder that this whole session is being recorded. So we'll wait a couple minutes to see if people have other questions for you all. Jan, I wanted to thank you again for sharing the data. It's unfortunate that what we've seen around elders in poverty hasn't really changed over the years. And the fact that the American Indian Alaska Native population tends to be a younger population. But I was envisioning when you mentioned the 437 American Indians, Alaska Natives who are 100 years and older, is like, how wonderful is that? And wouldn't it be great if we could get them all together in a celebration and to honor them, because their experiences that they have over all those years would just be phenomenal to share.
You know, when I actually saw that information, my heart really sort of lifted from my chest. I was like, you know, we always talk about, about this. And yeah, I mean, I love the idea of getting them all together.
We have a question that came in that says, do you have scheduled dates yet for the regional gatherings?
Hi, this is Vicki. We are just getting started on working on that, and I realize it's September, so we probably won't. Whoops. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. So you will probably be starting in October, actually, towards the middle of October. So you'll be hearing from us very soon, trying to plan a month out. And those will all be virtual. I can't even remember if I said that. So we know we can't travel around the state and meet in person yet. So be looking out for us to be reaching out and making those connections. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. We have a question here about Teams. Is there a way to print the attached documents from this Teams platform? I'm going to look to her.
Yeah, I could help answer that for you guys as the administrator on the back end. There is not a way to do that yet unless we upload the slides, which we actually did. So we uploaded the slides to the Teams called COVID ADRC grants. So if you go to the Teams channel, there's a Teams icon on the left. And under that Teams channel, the COVID ADRC grant, you'll see under the Files tab that this presentation is there in a PDF form. You could print it, you could download it on your computer there and then print it at home.
Thank you for that, Amanda. A couple more comments have come in. It would be great to have a Zoom meeting with those elders. So I'd love to hear more from them directly. And then another comment, really appreciated this session and everything all of you have done during this time. So grateful to hear from the elders and hope there will be more opportunities. Will you be sharing written stories along with videos in the future?
This is Vicki. I think that's a great idea. I don't think that we've thought that far out. We know that the videos are very powerful, but written stories will most likely be part of our report.
Vicki, I'll just make a plug here if you don't mind. We have actually started sharing stories from the elders in our quarterly newsletter, and it's called the Pulling Together for Wellness Elders Corner. And really our intention here is really to highlight the strengths within our communities and also the wisdom. It's amazing. I've heard so many elders say, well, you know, I really don't have anything to say, but you sit down and there's, gosh, so many jewels that come from a conversation, but you have to make the time and space to do it. So we have incorporated that into our newsletter, and I hope, and thank you for the suggestion there. I hope that we're also able to utilize some of those stories in that avenue of communication too. So.
Great. So one final comment was, again, thanking you for the presentation. The graphics are fantastic and presented in a way that makes it easy to comprehend. Thank you for the great presentation. And with that, we will wrap this session up. And we are going to get ready to move into our fifth session at 2 o'clock, which is a breakout session. So I will be seeing you all after that at 3 o'clock, and thanks so much again. Goodbye.